All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Taya Brown. I am the administrative coordinator here at the Temple SBDC. The Temple SBDC helps small businesses start, grow, and succeed. We do this through our no-cost consulting and a variety of our no-cost webinars and training programs like you're joining us for today. We are proud to be a part of the nationally accredited network of SBDCs with over 1,000 centers across the nation. You have joined us for building your team. A copy of today's PowerPoint and recording will be sent to all attendees within 2 to 3 days in a follow-up email. All attendees have been muted. We do encourage you to post any questions that you may have in the Q&A and chat box. Now I'll turn over the floor to our presenter, Erika Tapp Duran.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't have an intro slide for myself, but I will say that I am presently the director at the center here, and I have been, you guys are seeing the presentation screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you can just make it full display, that would be good. Perfect. Thank you.
Is that what you're seeing? You're seeing the full
Yes.
screen now? Okay,
Mhm.
great. So I should just tell you I'm the director at the center, and I have been on this team. I started as a business consultant back in 2019. So welcome. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. So first, we're going to discuss, we're sort of going from beginning to end. So the first consideration for everyone would be an advisory board, which we'll discuss, planning to hire, actually hiring, building out your systems, onboarding new employees, and managing new employees. Oh, I should say, please make liberal use of the chat if you have any questions at all, the chat and the Q&A. And I'll check in on that periodically and answer questions as they come up. So please put anything you've got in the chat or the Q&A. So let's start with an advisory board, which could also be a red wine club. Now, the idea here is that before you are actually ready to hire employees, that you work with a group of advisors, either collectively or individually, to help you solve your business problems, to help you navigate your strategy, to help you navigate challenges. So this is something I would recommend for anyone, regardless of the scale of your business. Having people who are outside the business, who have different areas of expertise, who also are vested in you being successful, having that group, having that sounding board can be incredibly valuable and really help you make better business decisions. Now, this can be as formal or informal as you want. So this is advisory board or red wine club. So at the highest, most formal level, you would have a group of people. You would bring them together on some kind of regular basis, monthly, quarterly, in person, by Zoom, whatever. And you would come with an agenda and things that you'd want to discuss with that group. That may be challenging when you're a smaller business or you're just getting started, or it may not be all that useful. So certainly it's an option to have just individual relationships with different folks. And, you know, this idea of Red Wine Club, just invite everybody over, give them some pizza, give them some red wine, give them some tea and cookies, and just have everyone kind of shoot the breeze with you and help you navigate some issues, but do it in a setting that's fun for everyone. So strongly encourage that. It can be yet another task on your already very full plates. So some things to keep in mind when you are thinking about the types of expertise that you need in your corner that you may not have on your team as it stands. People with tax and finance experience, legal folks, someone who's a prospective client, someone who's another entrepreneur, someone who knows the industry, someone who is a politician, a designer, a journalist, a scientist, potentially an employee. So, and this sounds lovely, right? So, oh, sure, I would love to get all, 15 of those people in a room and know all 15 of those people who would be willing to spend some time helping me with my business. The reality is you probably don't. Or you might have one, but not any of the others, whatever the case might be. The most important piece of putting together your group, either as a group or a set of advisors that give you guidance on your business growth and strategy. The most important thing is that people are coming from diverse professional backgrounds. It should not be a room full of people or a group of people who are just like you. They have the same kind of work in the same industry, same professional background, same educational background. What you need is people who are going to be challenging your assumptions and bringing a fresh perspective. So the more you can get away from people who are like you, which is our natural tendency, right? Erika Tapp Duran starting her consulting company, my immediate response would be, let's get a bunch of business consultants together. But no, that's not what I actually would need. I would need someone with marketing. I would need someone with legal. I would need tax advice, things like that. But even someone coming out of engineering, even someone coming out of customer service, coming out of a wide variety of fields could still be really valuable. The important thing is that they are different from you in their professional background, professional educational experiences, and that they are willing to support you. So that diversity and people who are different from you is the most important piece. And people who are professionals who are going to take this seriously. I like to remind everyone that there are two camps of supporters that you have. One is your cheerleaders. That's your mom. That's your best friend. That's your partner who say things like, you're amazing. I know you can do anything you put your mind to. I am totally sure you're going to be successful, which is nice to hear, but it's not particularly helpful. I mean, a little boost of confidence is always welcome, but it's not particularly helpful when you're trying to decide which marketing strategy you should adopt. So you need another group of people, another type of person that's supporting you, which is someone who's going to come in with a knowledge base and offer constructive criticism, offer a different perspective on the issue at hand, help you navigate the decision making. So someone who's willing to be a little critical of you, someone who is willing to challenge your assumptions. That can be your SBDC consultant. That's certainly a role that we fill. But it could be your advisory board, it could be your mentor, it could be your coach, whoever it might be. The important thing is that your cheerleaders are wonderful. We love them. You need them, but they are not filling this role. Okay. Now, let's say moving on, regardless of the status of an advisory board or a red wine club, you're still looking to hire an employee or employees. So the first step is actually doing some planning. I recommend, this is just a graphic from a particular company. You're going to get this slide deck, so you can use this as your tool. You can just take the categories and think through it, whatever. I like this graphic because it sort of shows all of the aspects of the business. So what you need to do is sit down as the owner, sit down and assess how you're spending your time. Where are you spending the most time? Because presumably you're bringing someone in or feel the need to bring someone in because you cannot handle the workload anymore. Your current staff cannot handle the workload anymore. So my suggestion to you is look at all these categories, assess how you are how much time you are spending in each of these. Then look at the time you are spending on efforts where someone else could do the job. Again, thinking about bringing in that diversity of skill sets, that diversity of talents, perspectives. So if you're spending a lot of time on marketing, but you really should, and a lot of time on marketing and just a little bit of time on sales and service, but you know that marketing, or excuse me, that sales is where you really need to be devoting your time because of the types of clients you have. But meanwhile, you're fussing around with social media and websites, but actually you need to be doing customer site visits. So there is an instance where you could say, I need marketing help so that I can invest my time in the places where I'm going to best help the business grow, things that me and only me can do. So you're fussing about any of these things when really it could be outsourced to someone else. That's what you're looking for. But it starts with assessing your time, figuring out where you're spending too much of it when you do not need to be the person doing that. Okay, so that helps you determine the area of employee or expertise that you're going to need. So also, you want to think about this question of what is your vision for the business? What is the strategy for growing your business? Do you want more customers? Do you want to have more work for the same customers? Do you want more products or services? Do you want to increase revenue or profits? Do you need to stabilize operations? So start with this higher level strategy question. Excuse me, start with this higher level vision and then get into the strategy. How are you going to expand your customer base, reach new customers, or do more work for current customers? That's marketing. Stabilizing operations, increasing revenue, potentially new products, expanding your service offerings, that could be operational efficiency. Maybe you're good on the products you have, but you don't have enough of them to keep up with demand. Or in the case of new customers or wider range, then it's actually developing new products or services. This is not a conclusive list. You may have something that is different than what you're seeing here. Take these more as examples. So then we go from the big picture. How am I going to get there? How am I going to invest resources? And then literally, what will I be doing? The tactics. So is it going to be new software? Are you going to rebuild the website? Are you going to do more manufacturing? Do more networking, work with a manufacturer, new location, investing in product development. So you're moving narrower and narrower, and it's getting you close to actually understanding who you need to hire. Because if you're looking to implement new software, which could have to do with many of these, it could be new software could be part of what you need in order to increase your customer base or target new customers. So these are then like kind of the action steps for you to achieve your strategy to get to the vision. Now, there's a lot of barriers to hiring. Some of them are hard and real, and some of them are a bit more emotional. So you probably have some version of these or will have some version of these. So one question is like, basically, can I afford it? Is there the cash to support bringing someone on? And alongside of that, I'm going to spend this money for this staff person, and am I going to get a return on that investment? So I'm going to spend $50,000 on someone's salary, but it's only going to help me generate an additional $25,000 in revenue. Well, that breaks down. And in some cases, you can project that. In some cases, you don't really know until you try. So that can be a financial barrier, lending to some uncertainty about whether or not this is something you can really do. There can be logistical issues. So where are they going to work? You're working out of your home office. Can they work from your house? Can they work from their homes? Do you need an office space? So literally, where are they physically going to work? Do you need to get them equipment or software? And the big one, how hard it is to find the right person, train the right person, and keep them. And this right here is one of the biggest barriers, is finding the right person. And then like this is a kind of more of an emotional space for entrepreneurs, is the sense, because you've been doing it for a long time, this sense that you should just be doing it all yourself and saving some money. And fear around that financial commitment. So when you're thinking about compensation, because that is one of the biggest issues for most small businesses, the question of, is there cash flow / can I afford to do this? So to get to some answers on those questions, you're going to review your budget. If you don't have a budget, you're going to start making a budget. You're going to look at your historical profit and loss statements. Those are documents that will show how much money you made and how much you spent over a period of time, a year, a quarter, a week, whatever makes sense to you. So you know, bottom line, is this company making money? If it is making money, how much money is it making? Take a look at your actual cash flow. So profit and loss is telling you at the highest level, this much came in, this much was spent to earn that money. The cash flow is telling you what's actually in your bank account at any given time, because you could be hugely profitable, but all of the invoices got paid on December 31st. So you could be in negative cash for months on end before you get to the payment. So you can have a financial statement that says you turned a profit when you in actuality had to close your doors because you did not have enough cash. So you need to look at both and then do an assessment of the cost and the associated benefit, particularly economic benefit, to bringing a new person onto the team. So then we got to think about what you can pay, either what you can pay, what you want to pay, what you should pay. It all depends on your financial situation, but make sure that the pay aligns with qualifications. If you need a marketing strategist with deep SEO experience, who can build websites, who understands all of the social media algorithms, if you need that person, they are probably not going to work for $20 an hour. So stop thinking you're going to find that person for $20 an hour. If you have $20 an hour to spend, think about who you could get at that rate that would help you achieve all of these other things that we just discussed. So maybe you need more of an entry-level marketing person who is going to be able to manage your social media, make website updates, and has a super basic understanding of SEO and can just kind of like triage stuff as it comes up. That might be someone who's $20 or $25 an hour, but don't set expectations here while pay is going to be here. Make sure these things align. And if that means, you know, you want this, we all want this, right? Even I want things like way up here. That said, the pay is the pay. So you got to readjust the expectations to what you can actually afford to pay. Be sure you do, you know, part of figuring that out is doing your research. What are other people paying in the marketplace? Talk to other business owners about how they manage compensation. Figure out if you need to offer benefits, if you want to offer benefits, and go ahead and ask the applicants, what do you need? How much how much would you like to be earning from this job? Everyone's going to overshoot. Because that's what you do, because everyone wants to earn more money. But it'll start to give you a good range of where people are at. And if you're hearing kind of the same thing over and over from multiple applicants or in multiple conversations you're having, that's probably giving you a good indicator of what market rate is. So then we can think about some non-cash compensation. So when the dollars are not there to compensate someone as much as they would like or you would like, market rate, there are some things you can look at as a way of compensating people in non-monetary ways. So PTO, maybe a little extra PTO. You get 3 weeks vacation instead of 2. More flexible hours or flexibility on where people work. Covering meals from time to time. Access to tools and technology. Do you have an engineering firm and you've got someone who's, a up and coming engineer who's doing a couple side projects and they need access to CAD and your giant printer? Maybe you can say, can't pay you what you're worth, but look, you can have the computers off hours. You can, use the printer freely off hours. You can offer them to professional development opportunities. Maybe there's travel involved. This is just a list of ideas. Are there other things you can do to kind of sweeten the deal when your cash compensation is coming in low, or you just need to be more competitive in the marketplace for getting the people or the person that you want? So that's the compensation piece. That's the figuring out who you're going, what skill sets you need. And now we're going to talk through some different types of team members that you could be bringing on. So we're going to start with interns. Now, these are really popular because these folks are younger. They're typically not earning as much, as high a wage or rate as someone, of full-time working adult established in their industry. The duration of engagement can be short, so you're not making any kind of long-term commitment. And the younger folks tend to have a few more digital and social media skills than some older folks. So they can be a really good option for social media type work, or just generally things that require a lot of computer literacy. On the downside, it takes a lot of energy to train someone, and especially if it takes you a month to get someone up and running and they're only going to be around for 3 months and then you got to do it all over again, is that, worth the investment of your energy? They can be unreliable. If you don't pay them, I promise you they will be unreliable. You will, in this day and age, find it almost impossible to find someone good, and they will be unreliable if you do not pay them. So sure, free internships exist, but you get what you pay for. And it might not be possible to find a perfect alignment between what you need and what their skills are. Then we have actual employees, people that earn either a salary or an hourly wage. It's nice on the flip side from the interns, this is ongoing until someone decides it's going to end. You can fix their hours. They are completely within your control, so you can change up what they're doing hour to hour, day to day, week to week. The downside is you're making a long-term financial commitment. There may be costs of benefits, and part-time employees tend to be a little harder, a little easier to find, but are much more likely to be looking for something full-time, and they're just taking a couple of part-time gigs right now. Their life is in transition and they can only really do part-time work, but that may change in the future. Part-time employees tend to have a shorter tenure or duration of employment than full-time employees. So it's just something to keep in mind, because you can kind of start to bump up against some of the issues you might have with interns. Now, oh, excuse me. Now we've got independent contractors. So these are people you pay to do a project or a set of work. There's deliverables. I'm giving you X dollars to do this thing, not I am paying you a wage, an hourly wage, a salary, and you're going to get this done when you're going to get it done, versus here, develop my social media marketing strategy. I'm going to give you $5,000. You're going to give that to me on X date. So that you do not provide workspace for them. You do not provide any technology for them. You do not have to provide any benefits for them. You can make it really clear what they're supposed to be doing. They're responsible for all their own stuff. And you can get really specific skill sets or types of work completed. You don't have control over what hours they work, so they will not necessarily be available at every moment to talk to you. They're fixed in what they're doing. You cannot just, oh, can you do this little thing for me? Like, oh, I've got to get all these letters printed and into envelopes. Like, no, you can't ask an independent contractor to do that. You're going to be asking, that's an employee or an intern type task. You don't have a lot of space to be offering feedback on the work. You're contracting with them to complete a project. There may be some touch points uh, defined in the contract. But it's usually pretty limited in scope and the amount of time you can go back and forth if that's something you feel like you need to do. And overall, they're going to be more expensive, but it can be a lot cleaner, and it's easier to limit the scope. And it's a one and done. You make the payment and the arrangement is over. Okay. I'm going to skip over that slide. Okay, so you figured out whether you want an intern, an employee, or an independent contractor. Now so we're going to focus here on employee types. So this would be good for interns and employees. It would be less appropriate for contractors. Contractors, you're going to be providing a scope of services. I need this project done. If you are putting together a job description, here are some of my recommendations. You want it to be specific. You have all seen job descriptions with this kind of great, broad HR speak that kind of doesn't tell you anything useful, or it's just such human resources, legalese type language. You just don't know what it's saying. So be specific and thorough. And I would encourage you to keep it clear. So no jargon, speak and write as if this is someone who has no industry experience. Now, you may really need some specific industry experience, in which case you're going to want to talk about that, but do not assume that they know all the acronyms unless you need them to know the acronyms of your industry or your business. I think being authentic is really important. When you're writing, you have an opportunity to express the brand, the spirit, the values of your business. And I think that can help you find employees who are better suited for what you're doing. Include any physical requirements. So someone has to sit at a desk if there's 50 pounds that they have to be able to lift. I would also encourage, mentioning specific software that they need to be skilled at. And the best, what you can do is look for examples, like look around Indeed, look around LinkedIn, see the ones that you find compelling, that make sense to you, and model them, copy them, use them as a template. Okay. Now, in terms of hiring, how are you going to find the right candidates? So there are general job posting sites like Indeed, ZipRecruiter. I should include LinkedIn in here, places where you pay a fee, and just about every industry type of employee is going to be represented. It's always good to be on those sites, but you can't necessarily count on them for getting you exactly the right person, especially in these days of AI. People get bots set up to apply for jobs, and someone will, overnight apply for 100 jobs through their AI bot. And so you'll end up with a lot of AI garbage. And just generally a lot of applicants who are just totally way off base. If you can find industry specific job boards, that's a really good place. Local colleges and universities. So even for part-time employees or full-time employees, colleges and universities have all kinds of job boards for internships, for people that are being recruited coming out of school. So if there's a particular kind of background or major or skill set that you're really going to need, finding the local colleges and connecting with the departments or the career services folks can give you a great, good access to that population. Your network is probably one of the most powerful, and go ahead and use social media, right? So just be putting this out there far and wide as you can, but really think about who you're trying to get in front of and where they might be. So you found a few candidates, and now you need to hire someone. Or interview someone. So your standard questions, tell me about a time you succeeded at work. What's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? We all know how to answer those questions, and we always spin weakness to be something positive. I just say yes too much. I just want to help out so much. I try to tackle everything, but I know I'm working on it. You can spin it into a positive, but that doesn't mean you don't have actual weaknesses. You have actual weaknesses. We all have actual weaknesses, but we're not going to fess up to them in a job interview. So get specific, get behaviorally focused. Think about their style and maturity. How do they present themselves? How do they speak? How do you think your customers are going to respond to them? Do you need someone with a certain degree of maturity? Now, young folks can have professional maturity that they bring to the workplace, but you got to look for that. You got to know that there's going to be alignment between what you need and what this person is bringing. Generally, are they going to be a good fit with the culture of your business? Keep in mind, diversity is always a good thing, and it can mean any type of diversity. So certainly when we think of diversity, we're often thinking of race, but it can be also race or gender, right? But it can be educational background, it can be generations, it can be socioeconomic. There is some pretty good research showing that the more diverse a board of directors is, the more financially successful they are. And this is also a great way to get fresh perspectives, different approaches to the work that's being done. Your assumptions can be challenged, and that is only going to make your company stronger. Think about the value of the business, the value to the business, rather than who you like the best, who you get along with the best. We meet people. I'm in the process of doing some hiring. I have met some super lovely people, and I would love to have to work with them, but that does not make them the right person for the position, right? So again, here, this value to the business, think about skill sets or approaches that are complementary to yours rather than the same as yours. So I am a great strategy person. I'm a great big picture thinker. I'm good at coordinating and conducting lots of different things. There is a typo in every single document I ever write because I lose track of details sometimes. So when I think about the team and the people I work with, I need people who are detail oriented because that is a shortcoming of mine. When you're conducting the interviews, have a consistent format and consistent questions. Otherwise, you're comparing apples to oranges, and you really need to be comparing apples to apples. And even if you think you've got a shoe on someone, talk to a few folks. If you're looking more at a partnership, these will be discussions, not interviews. We're kind of skipping over this piece for today. But partnerships are another option for you. So once you find who you think is the right person, check references. I can't emphasize this enough. If people cannot produce 3 people to tell you that they're the most wonderful worker in the world, you're going to want to be mindful of that. Even if it's someone junior that's not going to necessarily have former employers who can speak with you, just someone, a teacher, a guidance counselor, a professor, whatever, but someone that can speak to their character. Ideally, you're getting someone who can speak to their skill sets. but make those calls. They can be very illuminating and they can really influence your decision about who to go with one way or another. And it's not just about whether or not they're good or not. It's about their style. It's about their approach, all kinds of things, how collaborative they are, all kinds of things you can learn that are not necessarily value judgments, but just thinking about, well, what you actually need in your business. So you're going to offer the position. You're going to write a hire letter. There's going to be a document that says you're starting on this date. Here is as much as you're going to get paid. You agree to this. So there's no wiggle room. This is the job. You can even go so far as to list in some key responsibilities of that job. Get a document, get it signed. Not just, hey, I really like you, would love you to work 10 hours a week for $20 an hour. And then they just start showing up for 10 hours a week. It's fine. You just put that in writing so everyone's clear and you've got a document reflecting what the agreement was. Really define, somewhere in here, the scope of their work. You're going to have sorted a lot of that out with the job description, but it'll be time to get more specific. So you want to have that mapped out and something that you can start with them on, early days or the first thing when they come on board, and set up a timeline and some milestones you'd like to see them achieve. By X date, I need you to be able to do this. By X date, I need to be able, I have to feel comfortable not checking every social media post you put up, whatever the case may be. So you've got the right person, you've offered them the position, you put it in writing, they have accepted, you've laid out clear terms for success, which is really what this is about. What does success look like? You've done all of that. Now you got to think about how you are going to make sure that this person, this new staff member, is value add to the business and that you're getting what you need from that person. So communication is key. So have some kind of regular schedule for check-ins or supervision, weekly, bi-weekly. Tuesday mornings, we talk for 15 minutes, whatever it is, have a consistent schedule where you're checking in. Even if you're checking in constantly through the week or while they're working, even if it's like back and forth on this, can you handle this, have some regular time where you can pull back a little bit and address smaller things that haven't been addressed with, haven't been dealt with, but also really to say, okay, what are the projects you're working on? Where are you spending your time? What challenges are you facing in an environment that is a little bit higher level, a little bit more sort of strategy and performance based as opposed to task oriented? As far as how you work back and forth with each other, what are your expectations about when you expect to hear a reply to an email or a phone call? During which time should you be expecting? During which time can you make phone calls and requests and emails? Be super clear about how the tools you are going to use to communicate. Whatever they are, and there's a lot of options out there, just find something, agree on it, make sure everyone has it, make sure it's working on their computer or their phone, and stick to it. So there's just a singular place as much as possible, have a singular place where the communications land. And so you can always kind of go back and look at things, but consistency makes it much easier to stay in better communication. Define what's urgent versus not urgent for them and for you. And define the boundaries of responsibility. So right here, that's where your responsibility ends and mine picks up because you're setting them up for success. Then you got to think about workflow. So you can take a project management approach where there's a project we're working on. How are we moving forward with it? Set milestones and accountability. Think about how you're reviewing the work, how you're ensuring quality outcomes. And really, I'm coming back to this again, define success. What's the saying? How are you going to know you've arrived at your destination if you don't know where you're going? So give them an opportunity. You want to set them up for success, and telling them what success looks like will be hugely beneficial to helping them achieve that, and also feel a sense of accomplishment with their work. Okay, this is the thing that I needed to get through, and I did it. And a sense of purpose can be really helpful to keeping your good people on board. Get some of the back of house logistic stuff handled. So what tools are you going to use for timekeeping, if that's relevant? How you're going to manage payroll. Are you going to use a payroll service? Which I highly recommend, even when you're small and you've got one part-time employee. Payroll services can handle a lot of the nitty-gritty for you and keep you in compliance. Most importantly, out of trouble with the IRS, because the IRS will find you. They will find you. Figure out what forms you need to collect, whether that's W-4 or W-9. It all depends on the type of working relationship you have. Again, use payroll service. And, if you have an opportunity to talk to an accountant just to make sure you're using best practices for the timekeeping and the payments and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so when you are thinking about onboarding and training someone, you got to come up with a training plan, and that's your responsibility. The new employee has certain responsibilities. Your responsibilities include making sure they know how to do the job, making sure they know how the company works. So give them a broad understanding of the company, what you do, where they fit into the puzzle. Figure out what training they need. Some of it could be very situated within the business. Some of it could be technological. So figure out what kind of training they need in addition to the specific things related to their role, especially if it's tech related. Think about how you're going to be transitioning them from dependent on you to independent. This is a good place where timelines and milestones can come into play to help you figure out when you really expect those things. And then if you've done a good job with your communications, this transition can happen smoothly. If you've defined what communications are supposed to look like, frequency, response time, etc., that lends itself to making someone more independent. There can be formal and informal aspects of taking a new staff member through orientation. I can tell you here at the SBDC, there's like a program we have. You need to do this. You need to watch this webinar. You need to shadow these people. But also I say, go out and have a cup of coffee, or, just pop in each other's office for 15 or 30 minutes and just get to know the person a little bit. Not that that's hugely important, that personal relationships, have good personal relationships, but just to start to see each other as people, as opposed to mysterious coworkers you don't know. Develop a plan, a timeline, and schedule meetings. And as much as you can have that complete when they come in, that will help them feel like they know what they're doing, you know what you're doing, and we're on a clear path together for success. Employee manuals, these are terrifically important. Best case scenarios, you have an attorney who helps you do it for us. Do most folks have access when they're a small business bringing on their first employee or one of their first 5 employees to spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000? I don't even know what. Expensive. Don't quote me on the price, but a good deal of money to engage a private attorney to put together a great employee manual. Probably not. So you're going to, in my suggestion is, if you are not able to do that, if you are not able to access a pro bono legal clinic, that you go ahead and do something in good faith for yourself. And in fact, this is all stuff you would want to work out before you even get to an attorney. So they're just going to write the document. They're not going to tell you what the document should say. So say everything. This is the place to be firm and formal. Outline the vision for the company. Include time off, code of conduct. Do you care what they're doing with their social media on their private time? Do you have specific boundaries and definitions of how customers are treated or how coworkers are treated? Be explicit in there. If there's a dress code or expectations around professionalism, say it. Have a grievance process. If there's an issue, here's what we're going to do. And this can include things like, first, there's going to be a verbal warning, and then there's going to be a performance improvement plan. And, successful completion will mean this. Unsuccessful completion will result in termination, that kind of thing. What it means to leave the position. So, for example, if you have an hourly or a salaried employee, a lot of times with PTO, I've had it many places I've worked where the rule has been, if you give less than 2 weeks notice, we're not going to pay you out on your vacation time. So you need to say that. What termination looks like, what the process would be for that. Make sure the employee signs. If you're working with a contractor, this type of thing is going to be included in the contract. And a lot of this is not so relevant to a contractual relationship. So make the employee sign it, because then, you know what? We talked about it. I gave you the document. You signed it. There is no mystery here about how things were going to go. And again, consult an attorney if you can. Okay. Management. So set systems for or processes for meetings, how frequently, formal or informal. And we kind of mentioned this already. Define accountability. Make clear what roles are and boundaries on those roles, have a system for evaluation, and again, define success. And then how are you going to keep that employee? You're going to have a good company culture. They say that culture eats strategy for lunch. So your company culture is the most important thing, because people don't quit jobs, they quit bosses. Your compensation, you certainly want to keep it where it's at. And people, even, a 2% cost of living increase can it really goes a long way to making people feel valued. Give them opportunities for growth. And in this day and age, having some flexibility is a good thing, and people really value that. By accommodations, I mean working from home or working in an office space, a designated office space. So that concludes my presentation. You've been a remarkably quiet group. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
And while we open up the floor for any questions, there will be a survey link, a quick 4-question survey to get your feedback. We do value your feedback. That way we can continue to provide no-cost webinars like he attended today.
And Tay, I think Tay's going to put question. Hi, Reed. How long before opening would you start hiring posting jobs? At least a few months. And what you could do is, in the posting, indicate the start date, so people are kind of eyes wide open about when the position would actually start. I mean, you don't want it to be a nebulous timeline, right? Sometime in February 2026. It needs to be more like first week of March 2026 or something like that. So it's specific, and they have something they can count on when they're thinking about their current employment, what their needs are now, whether it's better to wait, whether waiting is just not going to work for them. So I would say at least a few months. Michelle asked, what are some questions to ask references? It's my experience that previous employers will not offer anything further than confirming employment. Okay, so if you randomly call if you call a company or a business organization that a candidate has listed on their resume, all they are legally allowed to do is confirm the dates of employment. If someone references are people who should like the candidate, believe in them, respect them, and want to offer, want to offer, uh, you know, oh shoot, I lost my train of offer an opinion about the candidate as a person, as a professional. So when you ask for references, my expectation, my practices as a job seeker, and what I have seen others do is I tell my references in advance, hey, I'm applying for jobs. I may call on you to be a reference for me. They're typically former employers, former funders. In my case, I did my MBA. Well, I guess it's coming up on 10 years, but I still have relationships with some of my faculty. So whoever, I call on people that know me well and think well of me and have a meaningful professional relationship. If those names that I offer, those names that your candidate offers and contact information, those people should be able to do a whole heck of a lot more than confirm dates of employment. If that's all they're doing, that's a red flag to me. If someone lists you as a reference and you call the reference and they say, I can confirm that they worked for us from this date to this date under this job title, that's a red flag. If they can't find anyone who respects them that can speak to their professional skills, that's a red flag to me. And even if it's not, even if you're going for an intern, again, like if you're getting a high school student, sometimes personal references can tell you a lot. But there should be someone that can speak well of the candidate. And if they connect you to that person and give you their contact information, they should be able to share that. But if you call up an employer, a former employer, just straight up cold, all they can share and all that you are legally allowed to technically take into consideration is the dates of that employment. It's kind of more like verifying that the resume is true. Joe asked, is there someone we can talk to at the SBDC or elsewhere to point us in the right direction, right department for interns? Taya, could you drop the intake link in the chat? My recommendation, Joe, is schedule an intake phone call with one of our consultants and we'll kind of dive a little deeper on your question and get you some resources. Are there any companies that I would recommend for payroll? As a rule, here at the SBDC, I cannot recommend specific businesses, professionals, or anything like that. I'm going to tell you to do your due diligence. My biggest recommendation when you are thinking about any business you might be spending some meaningful amount of time with is go to the Better Business Bureau. I'm just typing that. Google reviews can be faked. Yelp reviews, whatever. So I like going to the Better Business Bureau because that is the place where formal complaints are registered. There's a process for kind of adjudicating those complaints. So you can get a good sense if people have been unhappy or if they've gotten what they need from the company, or if there's a whole bunch of complaints, to me, that would be a red flag. So there's big companies, there's small companies. Sometimes you might have an independent bookkeeper that would be willing to do it for you. There are the big national, maybe even international companies that can deliver certain value. I would talk to at least 2 or 3 and maybe 2 or 3 different types. And if you settle in, I'm going to work with one of the big giant ones, talk to one, then talk to another. At the SBDC, we love to say consult your professionals, but it would be great if you had an accountant that you could talk to about this issue and help you sort out what services or products you need or don't need. The big thing you're looking for is that they are preparing the checks. The nice thing about a payroll service is they work directly with the employee to set up direct deposit. So you don't you don't ever have to touch that piece of the thing, and the employee gets what they really want, which is direct deposit, right? But payroll companies, if you don't want to do that, they can also issue you paper checks, and they come in the mail, and you sign them and you can hand them to people. So producing the checks, ideally doing the coordination work with the employee. They'll also collect all the paperwork that an employee needs to submit. And um, and is very important is if you have people on salary or hourly wage, you have to file quarterly reports with the IRS reporting the taxes you've collected and making payment for the employer portion of those taxes. Actually, you submit all of the taxes collected as well as the employer contribution. You have to do that quarterly. If you do not do that quarterly, or you do that inaccurately, you will get into a world of hurt. And nothing is quite so expensive or traumatic as being in trouble with the IRS. That's part of why I feel so strongly about working with a payroll company. But maybe you have a conversation with your accountant and they say, hey, you know what, we can really handle that. Or you've only got one check a month, like we can just run that for you. Don't worry. It just, it depends on your situation, but I would absolutely pay good money to have a professional involved in that. Okay. I'll hang on for another minute, but I think we're done here. So thank you all for being here. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors and a great afternoon.